Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch, where today we're going to be talking about all the changes going on in the marketplace. With Throne of Eldraine being released, obviously the new standard meta is finally underway, and a lot of prices are being influenced because of new decks and a lot of new strategies there. But there's also a whole lot of other things going on throughout the market, which we'll discuss as the video goes on. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you check out FlipsideGaming.com, you can actually pick up Throne of Eldraine products, including singles now. They just put the singles up. And if you use that promo code HEROES, you can save 10% on any order over $10. And that also supports the channel, which is always appreciated. But without any further ado, let's get into it. We'll begin, as we always do, with Standard, and this time we're looking at the top 10 Standard legal cards that have lost value this week, and also 2 honorable mentions, so quite a few cards. Now, just a quick note before we get into the list, though, we're not going to look at Throne of Eldraine cards today. I did a companion video on those this past Thursday, so if you want to check that out and get caught up, you can. But until they stabilize a little more, I'm going to keep them separate from the regular market watch. Our first one is Jacques the Desecrated, down 53 cents to 11.21. Not seeing a whole lot of play in this new standard season so far. Now that could change, obviously, but when you compare it to the play that it saw last season, yeah, it stands to reason this card's going to be a little bit soft and it could lose more value before it stabilizes. Still a great commander card, though. You might want to pick it up in a few weeks for a commander, if nothing else. And also, this does see a tad bit of modern play. Sometimes you'll find one copy in an Elementals deck there in the sideboard. The second honorable mention is Leyline of Sanctity. This is the one from Magic 2011. It goes down 63 cents to 8.18. Now, this hasn't done a whole lot yet in Standard. It was reprinted in Core Set 2020, which of course is why this particular version is a little softer now. But maybe it could see some Standard play going forward out of sideboards. It does still see Modern and a little bit of Legacy and Vintage play, though. Can protect you from burn, discard, and mill. On to our top 10 with number 10, it's Oakenforum. This is one of the Core Set 2020 Welcome Deck cards, and you're going to see a few of these on the list today, which is why I wanted to go a little deeper into the cards losing value, so you didn't miss anything important. But as you remember, these cards are really overpriced right now in a lot of cases. Don't overpay for them. This particular one did come down 65 cents to 3.24 this week. You can find one copy in the Green Welcome Deck. They're not rare, but you don't see a lot of sales of them online because you don't have a lot of people breaking those decks up to sell them. And because of that, sometimes online pricing gets skewed by a few high listings and sales. Number 9 is Finale of Promise, down 81 cents to 7.69. Now, this card actually saw a fair amount of play in the past, usually tied in with Arclight Phoenix strategies. Now, Arclight Phoenix hasn't been doing as well recently in Modern because of the banning of Faithless Looting, of course. In its Standard, the meta has kind of moved on a little bit. Although I have seen a few Arclight Phoenix decks here or there this season. Doesn't feel like it's the favorite deck to do anything crazy, but again, it is still early. With that being said, though, this card does still see modern play, which is why it's still over $7. It might stabilize down a little bit more, but as long as it's showing up in these As Foretold Electro Dominance decks there, it's going to have some value. Number 8 is Disentomb. This is from the Core Set 2020 Black Welcome Deck. You can find one copy there. It also has new art, though. It goes down 83 cents to 2.61. Number 7 is Arclight Phoenix, down 83 cents to 11.75. So I kind of already talked about this card when we talked Finale of Promise. Maybe it does something this season as Standard, but right now it doesn't look like one of the bigger strategies out there. And remember, there's also a lot of extra copies of this card in the marketplace because there was a copy in the Arcane Tempo Challenger deck that came out a number of months ago. Number 6 is Ironclad Crovad. This is the one from the Core Set 2020 White Welcome Deck. You can find one copy there. It goes down 90 cents to $1.92. Number 5, same story here. One copy in the White Welcome Deck for Core Set 2020 Siege Mastodon. Goes down $1.20 to $3.09. At least these things are starting to come down. Number 4 is Omnith Locus of the Royal. It goes down $1.23 to $10.87. Another card that's just not seeing a whole lot of play in this new Standard meta, at least so far. It does see a tad bit of modern play, usually just a one of in those modern elementals decks in the main. But it is a good commander card. Because of that, it's going to hold at least some value, although I do think it's going to come down a little more before it stabilizes. Number 3, Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, down $1.23 to $11.32. Now, this card obviously did not rotate out of Standard, but a lot of its friends did. Those Ixalan Vampires, which of course created a great deck last season alongside this, are now gone, so this isn't really seeing a whole lot of Standard play at this point. but still a good Oathbreaker or Commander card if you want to play Vampire Tribal in those formats, or if you just want to play casual kitchen table Magic. Number 2 is Skeleton Archer, another Core Set 2020 Welcome Deck card. You'll find one copy of this in the Black Welcome Deck. It goes down $1.27 to 87 cents. Number 1, Leyline of the Void. Guild Pack down 64 cents to $28.99. Magic 2011 down $1.78 to $18.99. So, of course, part of the reason for the softness here, much like Leyline of Sanctity, was this card was reprinted in Core Set 2020 as a rare, so there's a lot of copies out there. However, the big reason these cards have lost so much value recently is the banning of Faithless Looting, as well as Hogak in the Modern format. There was a time where this card was just critical if you're going to play Modern. Still a good Modern sideboard card, though, and also sees a little play in Legacy and Vintage, too, out of boards. Definitely worth having some of these in your collection, but not as important to Modern players as it was just a few weeks ago when some people were actually main decking this card. On to the top 5 standard legal cards that have gained value this week. Number 5, Teferi Time Raveler, up $1.40 to $17.49. We haven't seen Teferi in a little while. Not too surprising, though, that he's back on this list as the new standard gets into full swing. This is going to see play in a number of decks, I have no doubt. One of the big ones that comes to mind is the Jeskai Fires of Invention build. Now, in Modern, this card has really taken off. Urza Thopter Sword, which is incredibly popular right now. Azorius Stoneblade builds, a lot of control builds will run this, sometimes even Infect or more. This has even been known to see a little Legacy and Vintage play, too. Number 4, Hydroid Crisis back again, up $2.26 to $23.94. All of the usual suspects are here, and part of the reason is in between the standard season, people didn't want to spend money on the high-priced cards until they knew exactly what they were going to be doing this season. So now these are starting to come to life again. This card in particular is showing up at a number of different places early on. Bant Lands, Bant Ramp, Bant Hero, Simic Food, and more. Also does see a little Legacy in Modern play too. Number 3, Spawn of Mayhem goes up $2.33 to $8.97. This is a card that has really taken off so far in this new standard meta. The Rakdos aggro deck, one of the more popular decks out there right now, typically runs 4 of this. There's also a very good mono black aggro deck running this. Golgari mid-range decks many times will run it. Now, I mentioned this last week, but remember, there was a copy of this in the Ravnica Allegiance Rakdos Guild Kit, so there are extra copies in the marketplace compared to your typical Mythic from Ravnica Allegiance. Just keep that in mind. But even so, this card is extremely hot right now. Number 2, Cavalier of Flame goes up $2.82 to $5.81. Another key portion of the Jeskai Fires of Invention deck. As long as that deck continues to perform well, this card could keep going up. Number 1, of course, Knight of the Ebon Legion goes up $3.11 to $9.51. Now, last season, this was a very solid card in those vampire builds. This season, it's a very solid card in a number of different builds. Rakdos Aggro, which is a popular deck, like I mentioned, also Mono Black Aggro, Jund Adventures, Golgari Midrange. Sometimes you'll find this showing up in Knights builds. This is a card you're going to see a lot of this standard season, I have no doubt, and I do think it's going to go up more before it stabilizes. Okay, let's move on to Modern, with the top 5 Modern legal cards that have lost value this week. Number 5, Sword of Feast and Famine. This is the one for Meriden Besieged. It goes down $2.58 to $65.07 with the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic in Modern not too long ago. This card heated up pretty aggressively. Finally, we're seeing a little bit of normalization and retraction. So this is not out of the ordinary, does not mean this card isn't seeing Modern play or anything like that. As a matter of fact, seeing a fair amount of play. In Stoneblade decks as well as Stoneforge packages, I would say I probably see Sword of Fire and Ice a little more. I see Batterskull a little more, but this is right up there in the conversation as well. So this is seeing Modern play. It also sees Legacy play. Great Commander card too. It just needs to find its new price point now that the hype is dying down. In some cases, players see a spike like this and sell or trade away copies if they're not using them. That leads to more cards in the wild, resulting in these kind of stabilizing price trends. So we'll see probably this go down a little bit more before it kind of settles in. Number 4, same story here, Sword of Light and Shadow. This is the one from Darksteel. It goes down $2.64 to $55.40. Now, this one I don't see played as much as the other ones I mentioned, but it is still kicking around. And because of that, it's not going to go back down to where it was before the hype happened. But again, you are seeing some retraction and normalization this week. Number 3, Jace the Mind Sculptor, down $4.24 to $137.99. This is the original from Worldwake. Kind of the same story, believe it or not. This got hot when Stoneforge Mystic became unbanned. Also, with the banning of Faithless Looting and Hogak, it just opened up more avenues for people that might be interested in playing this card in Modern. This is showing up in Stoneblade builds and continues to see success in various control decks. This card also sees play obviously in Legacy, Vintage, Commander, Oathbreaker. It's just a fantastic card all around, but it is settling in, trying to find its new price point again since that Stoneforge hype is subsiding a little bit. Number 2, here we go again, Sword of Fire and Ice, down $5.62 to $90.87. This is the one from Modern Masters, one of the favored pieces of equipment with Stoneforge Mystic, but also one of the ones that spiked the most aggressively, especially this particular copy of the card, so it normalizes this week too. Number 1, another card that recently spiked aggressively, Mox Opal, Scars of Mirrodin down $4.08 to $115, Modern Masters 2015 down $15.19 to $114.01. So these are feeling a little more normalized when you look at these prices. However, I do think they could come down a little more before they stabilize. We know what this card does. The card is incredible. It's everywhere. Just look at Modern recently. Urza Thopter Sword decks have been very popular. Hardened Scales, Classic Affinity, War Prison, Chargetron, and more, right? But the reason we saw the spike happen a week or two ago now is really because of the Paradoxical Urza deck. That's a deck that's been getting better and better. It's had a lot of buzz around it and definitely stands to get even better now with Emry Lurker of the Loch coming out. Speaking of Emry, there are a lot of really cool combos you can do with that card, as well as this one and many others in Commander. So that has been another driving factor for the price recently. Not to mention, this is a great Legacy card. Sees play in Ad Nauseam Tendrils and Bomberman. Vintage, Paradoxical outcome there. Until this finally does see another reprint, I don't expect this to be under $100. Okay, let's move on to the top 5 Modern legal cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5, of course, Paradoxical Outcome, up $273 to $414. Like I said, this has been a great Vintage card for a while, but now, especially with Emry coming out, the Paradoxical Urza deck is getting very hot in Modern. Number 4, Tarmogoyf from Modern Masters this time, up $276 to $59.98. This card was just down, now it's back up again, trying to find its price point, nothing crazy here. Great card in Modern, Jund, The Rock, Traverse Shadow, and more. Legacy, Temur Delver, 4-color Loam, Vintage, Sultai Midrange. This card, of course, sees play in a ton of places. Number 3, Godsire, goes up $302 this week to $21.95. Another card that's up and down. Still trying to find its price point. This card has never been reprinted, so it is a little difficult to find now in good condition. And when the Primal Genesis Commander 2019 deck came out, a lot of people wanted this as an upgrade. Additionally, there is Atla Palani Nest Tender found in Primal Genesis. You'll find a lot of players building around that card as a commander, and this is good in that deck too. Number 2, okay, a different copy of Sword of Fire and Ice. This is the Dark Steel one. It goes up $325 to $84.99. And like I said, this one did not spike as aggressively as the Modern Masters one, so yeah, they're trying to meet a little bit towards the middle. Number 1, Mox Amber. This goes up $10.94 to $28.09 this week. Of course, this has been hot for a number of weeks. Obviously, if you've been watching the Market Watch, you know why that is. Paradoxical Urza in Modern. Now, for a while, I've been seeing a lot of deck lists running 4 copies of this, but recently they've been paring down, sometimes even to 1 copy. So we'll have to kind of see what happens. Ultimately, I wouldn't be shocked if next week this was number 1 on the down list, just because it feels like it is due for a little retraction and normalization based off the heavy spiking. Regardless, though, whether there's 1 copy or more in that Paradoxical Urza deck, this is a card that will see Modern play, and in the future, it stands to see more Modern play. Aside from that, this is getting more popular now for Commander players because of Emry Lurker of the Loch. Like I said earlier and in previous weeks, there's a lot of good combos you can do with this card, Emry, and some others that are out there. Okay, let's move on to our Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Vintage, Legacy, 93, 94, or cards that are just important to collectors. First, we have Dark Depths from Cold Snap. It goes up $311 to $39.09. Probably a little overdue. How many times in these videos do I say this card sees play in Depths decks? Well, here's the Depths from Depths decks, and in Legacy, of course, this sees plenty of play. You'll also find this in lands and loam builds too, and it is seeing increased Vintage play now since Fastbond has been unrestricted. Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga goes up $356 to $354.99 this week. Now, this is a card that is on the reserve list, but it did get a reprinting as a foil Judge promo back before they closed that loophole on the reserve list. This sees Legacy play in Elves and Maverick, and it's a great commander card if you're lucky enough to own one. As a matter of fact, I got to mention this week on the Command Zone podcast again, which maybe brought some attention to it. Wheel of Fortune from Revised goes up $428 to $99.24. This is also on the reserve list, and another good commander card that also happened to be mentioned on the Command Zone podcast this week. Also good in 93, 94, and Vintage. You'll find this in Paradoxical Outcome and Dark Petition Storm there. Another reserve list card with Grim Monolith. It goes up $4.95 this week to $160.54. In Legacy, you'll find this in Mystic Forge combo and 12 post. Great commander card as well. Volcanic Island. This is the one from Revised on the reserve list. It goes up $5.06 to $493.42. A lot of those revised dual lands were moving last week. Many of them have calmed down now, but this one's still going up. Mox Diamonds on the reserve list, but did get a reprinting in From the Vault Relics as a foil, again, before they close that loophole on the reserve list. It goes up $12.35 to $269.99. And in Legacy, you'll find this in a lot of the same builds where you find Dark Depths. Depths builds, lands, loam builds, 4-color control. Sometimes they'll run this too, and more. This is good in Vintage and Commander as well. Vesuvan Doppelganger from Unlimited on the reserve list, but did get a reprinting and Revised. It goes up $16.24 to $79.99 this week. This has just been one of the hot Unlimited cards recently. Continues to jump up. Fast Bond. This is the one from Unlimited. It goes up $32.44 to $89.99. Also on the reserve list, but did get a reprinting and Revised. This was recently unrestricted in Vintage and is actually seeing more play in the format ever since that happened. Actually performing pretty well too. Bayou from Unlimited. Another dual lands here, of course, on the reserve list, even though much like the last two cards, it did get printed again and revised. It goes up $72.60 to $799. Black Lotus from Unlimited is back again. Actually, it never left. It's been here for 3 weeks now, and it is on the reserve list. It goes up $855.79 to $17,999. And same story as the last 2 weeks. There's not a lot of these for sale at any given time or actually selling at any given time, so it's hard to get a lot of market data online, especially. Because of that, if somebody puts a really high listing out there, it can skew the data when you look at the price tracking sites. So that's why I wanted to put it out here, just let you know what's going on. There is somebody that listed one of these, even though it is near mint at an extremely high price point. They may be fishing for an offer, but that's what you're seeing here. Basically, if you really are interested in buying a lightly played Black Lotus, you would expect to pay maybe $9,000 to $10,000 typically, maybe closer to $11,000 if you're buying from one of the big sellers because you trusted them. Onto the Commander Spotlight. A lot of cards here as usual, so I'll go kind of quick through these. First, we have Cloud Key. This goes up $1.03 to $21.10, so this is just a great Commander card generally, but it has seen more play recently with Elsha of the Infinite from Commander 2019. Death Coil Worm goes up $1.04 to $6.85. Okay, sure, this is probably a fine Commander card, I guess, but the real reason it's going up is because it is a Portal Second Age card, and they're getting harder and harder to find in good condition. Kind of the same story here with River Bear from Portal Second Age as well. It goes up $1.21 to $6.09. But remember, Bear Tribal has been pretty hot recently in Commander. Jeskai Ascendancy goes up $1.26 to $4.75. Couple of reasons. One is Commander. This is seeing increased play now with Elsha of the Infinite. But also in Modern, there is a offshoot version of that Paradoxical Urza deck running this. It isn't as popular. Don't know if it will do as well. But at least right now, some people are trying it out. Snapcaster Mage from Ultimate Masters. It goes up $1.27 to $68. Okay, so yes, this sees a ton of play in Modern. Azorius Stoneblade, Grixis Death Shadow, Control builds, sees Legacy and Vintage play too. But don't forget, it's also a very big Commander card, and it did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week. Reset. Speaking of the Command Zone podcast, this was another one that they talked about. It goes up $1.29 to $33.24. Polluted Bonds up $1.35 to $22.54. This card took off not too long ago because of Yurok the Desecrated, but more recently it's seen play with Carrick Son of Yawgmoth from Commander 2019 as well. Intuition. This one's on the reserve list, but did get a Judge promo reprinting in foil. It goes up $1.37 to $56.84. This is a good Legacy card. Sometimes you'll find this in Sneak and Show builds, but also sees a fair amount of Commander play. Winds of Change. This is the one from the original Portal. It goes up $1.50 to $16.99. Kind of the same story here. Like, sure, you'll play this in Commander. Sometimes it's just fine. But again, it's just getting harder and harder to find in good condition. Bitter Blossom. This is the one from Morningtide. It goes up $1.46 to $49.39. And of course, if you watch the channel, you know, sometimes these Morningtide rares or other sets around this time period, they tend to get a little spiky just because the print runs were a little bit lower during that time. Now, this card sees play not only in Commander, and actually it has been seeing a little more play recently because of Alila Artful Provocateur there, but also sees some Modern play too, sometimes in Pox builds or in Stoneblade builds, and at times a little Legacy and Vintage play as well. Urza Lord High Artificer goes up $1.65 to $46.99. Okay, so a couple of reasons. Obviously, one reason is Commander. great commander card, and again, did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week. However, the primary reason I would say is Paradoxical Urza right now in Modern. Aside from that deck build, though, it was still doing good in Modern prior to that because of Urza Thopter Sword and War Prison decks. Food Chain, classic commander card here, goes up $1.72 to $43.97. Now, this does see a little legacy play, but I do think this is moving more so because of Commander this week. Here's another card that has been moving up for a few weeks now because of Chilean Teller of Tales. It is Overburden, going up $1.85 to $11.78. Drafna's Restoration goes up $1.89 to $15.25. Decent Pauper card, decent commander card. Probably seeing a little more play right now because of Alila, Artful Provocateur, and Commander. However, I do think a lot of this was speculation. Like I said a couple weeks ago when we talked about this card, it could have partially been a buyout because of the prospects of this card just getting better in both Pauper and Commander. Tainted Pact. This goes up $2 to $19.49. We haven't seen this card in a few weeks, but here it is jumping up again. Ever since Jace Wielder and Mysteries came out, this card has been pretty popular for Commander and Oathbreaker builds around that card. City of Brass. This is the one from 7th edition going up $207 to $12.99. Now this does see Modern play as well as a little bit of Legacy play, but this is a huge Commander card. When it comes to this particular copy, I just think the 7th edition one is drying up a little bit on the marketplace. That's why you're seeing this jump this week. Exquisite Blood goes up $217 to $27.47. Now, this has been a good commander card for a while. We've talked about it in previous videos. But this week it does jump up again, partially because it is seeing a little more play now because of Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth. Mycosynth Lattice from Darksteel goes up $221 to $60.98. This card took off a few months ago with the release of Karn the Great Creator and then also Mystic Forge. But now there's a new card coming out that loves artifacts too, and of course that is Emery, Lurker of the Loch. So I do think you're going to see more commander builds with this and Emery in them in the future. Also, this card does continue to see play in other places. In Modern, this is in Tron builds, Amulet Titan, Eldrazi builds, some of the Urza Thopter Sword decks as well. This also continues to see Legacy and Vintage play, although not as much Vintage play since the restriction of Karn the Great Creator and Mystic Forge there. Survival of the Fittest from Exodus. This is on the reserve list, but did get a reprinting as a foil Judge promo. It goes up $222 this week to $87.35. Now, this does see Vintage play, obviously, in survival decks, but it is seeing a little more play in Commander now because of Korvald Fey Curse King. Those Brawl commanders are actually having a pretty big impact on prices this week. Bloom Tender from Eventide, so again, from that time period of Magic, but this is a classic commander card. It goes up again this week, $261 to $49.99. Knight Exemplar, Magic 2011 up $1.50 to $14.46. Dual decks, Knights vs. Dragons goes up $2.74 to $13. So ever since the Throne of Eldraine preview started and we began seeing all these Knights coming out, many players decided they wanted to build a Knight Commander deck, and this is a great one to put in there if you're going to do it. Remember too, there was a Knight Commander in the Knights Charge Brawl deck that a lot of people are now building around for Commander purposes. That's Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashval. Necropotence, 2 copies going up this week. Ice Age up $1.18 to $19.98. 5th edition up $3.05 to $18.99. So, you know this card has been hot recently if you've been watching the market watches. For the most part, is because of Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth. Aside from that, this does see Vintage play, but really Carrick has been the driver here. Edric, Spymaster of Trest. This is the one from Commander. It jumps up $4.52 to $6.48. Now, this card is a fantastic Commander card, but I do think the main reason this copy is jumping is because it is drying up a little bit in the marketplace. Onto the Pauper Spotlight. We have Muldrifter here going up 14 cents to 157. This is the one from Lorwyn, though, the original. You'll find this in Scred, Tron, and other decks in the Pauper format. Sees Modern play too in Bat Soul Herder and other decks there. And also, it's a good commander card generally as well. Chromatic Star, 10th edition up 21 cents to $7.99. Time Spiral up 24 cents to $6.92. In Pauper, this is in Affinity, Tron, and more. But probably the main reason for this increase is Modern. You'll find it in Tron builds there, and also Urza Thopter Sword builds, and yes, even Paradoxical Urza. Okay, onto our premium spotlight. Now, I don't like to spend too much time talking about rare promos or foils because they are hard to track online. Sometimes you really get some skewed data, but I like to try to pick one every week that feels like it is truly moving with the market. This week, I went with Paradoxical Outcome. The pre-release promo went up $8.31 to $28. The regular foil from Kaladesh went up $11.42 to $33.69 for all the reasons we talked about earlier in the video. That concludes this episode of the Market Watch. Now, early this week, we are going to do a recap video looking at the results from some of the big tournaments this weekend. If you're curious as to what cards might be in some of our future Market Watch videos, check that out because we're going to get our first look at the new standard in paper and maybe get an idea of where the standard meta is going to go in the coming weeks. Until next time, though, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a great day.